years ago, District 33 was led to distinguished status by a Choate. Now, 30 years later, another Choate is district governor. You know what that means. In another 30 years, we get another Choate.
Be afraid.
I want to thank all of the outgoing officers, not a lot were here today, but nonetheless, for their service to make our district a fine organization. We had, I'll get into specifics in a little bit, but unlike the cupbearer, as Wayne alluded to, who can no longer serve his fellow man, I hope that the experience that they had and that you will have serving your clubs, your club members, will be a rewarding experience, and that you continue to serve your fellow Toastmasters. We can hold our head up high this year, 93 distinguished clubs. That put us into a select distinguished category in that one category. Let me tell you why that is so significant. It means that the club members are achieving their own educational goals, leadership and communications, and that the officers of the club are knowledgeable and they're committed to the growth of the club. The strength of the club comes from the officers being properly trained in their leadership roles. Let me say that again. The strength of the club comes from the officers being properly trained in their leadership role. I asked Brenda O'Brien if there was a direct correlation between the number of officers being trained and those clubs that achieved distinguished status. She ran the numbers. Interesting. The clubs that had 5 or more officers trained were distinguished. Most of them. Even the 4, like T.I. says, that's good enough. It's not good enough. So we need to continue to strive for 100% officers training. There's one example of how club officers made a significant difference in the outcome of their club this year. Toastmasters XL in Division B. Now I know we have lots of different examples throughout our whole district. I'm just going to pick this one. They had a membership base of 13. They needed, what, 18 to be distinguished. On June 25th, 5 days before the end of the year, they scheduled an open house. They put it in a different venue, an upscale venue, and they targeted a whole new group of individuals. At the end of that meeting, 12 people with applications and checks signed up, putting them to select distinguished. Yeah. It's an example of how the club officers did it right. They promoted early and often. They had food. And they put a star-studded program together. It was one of the most professional open houses I've ever attended. Those officers rallied with the club members. They took pride in their club and achieved distinguished status. Let's see where we are as a district right now. I know it's numbers, but we need to look at where we are as an awareness so we know where we're going. We can hold our head up high. TI has payments. You're going to see, as a leader now, you're going to look at this differently. Payments. That includes new members and charter members, all clumped together. Payments. As Katie taught us, we needed a 3% increase to be distinguished. The first on C payments, not really a great slide, but percentage of growth under payments, 0.72, not quite 3%. For clubs, we needed a increase of 3%. We went from 189 to 192. An increase, C percent of growth, 1.59, not quite 3%. Distinguished clubs, 93. Look at that, 49%, 50% is President's Distinguished. Yeah, okay. Okay, Wayne, next slide.
Next slide.
So that's how we did. It's very respectable. Very proud. We need to look at our goals for next year. I put out the numbers that where we are, like our base, and with the percentage of growth 3, 5, and 8, and then the percentage of growth for distinguished clubs 40, 45, and 50%. And these are the numbers that we'll need to reach. Now I want to ask us all collectively today to decide on our goal. What do we want to be at the end of next year? If you look and see, to be distinguished, the base payments is just an increase of about 206 payments. Not a lot, but you have to think of those members that we lose. And then select on paid clubs. It has to have a 3% gain for distinguished. You have to have 201 and 207 for President's Distinguished. I know it's just numbers, but you need to see it black and white so you know where you're going. Of the 192 distinguished clubs, or clubs I should say, are 40% would be distinguished, 45 is select, and 50% is President's, and we practically hit President's this year. So what we're doing is right. So I want to know, where do you want to be next year?
Distinguished.
President's Distinguished?
Go for it.
Okay, that's good. I'm glad you didn't say distinguished, you know, because if you don't get distinguished, you don't have anything. So at least if you shoot for select or presidents, you might get something. So can we all agree upon we want to be President's Distinguished? Okay.
Say it again. Say it again.
Say it again.
What do we want to be?
What do we want to be?
President's Distinguished.
All right. Let me tell you how I propose to get there. Number one, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We have distinguished clubs. We are building healthy and strong clubs. We're focusing on the members gaining from the program, they're achieving their goals, and the club officers are committed to the growth of the club and the Distinguished Club program. Don't change that. Number two, clubs. Historically, June is when most of the clubs are chartered. And it's not just our district, it's worldwide. I'm asking us as a district to flip it around. If we charter specifically 5 clubs, from now until September the 30th, which is that first quarter, we'll have a significant difference outcome. Let me explain it. When you charter a club, 20 members, times 5 is 100. I'm going to say payments. That's how TI looks at it. We think it's dues, but think of it as payments. Then, November comes along, we renew again, another 100 payments. Then, in April, another renewal cycle, another 100 payments. That's 300 payments. If we charter the same clubs, 5 of them, in June, you get 100 payments. We lost out from being distinguished by 156 payments. Do you see how it's different? Is 300 better than 156? All right, we need to flip that around. The other thing, membership. We have clubs that have the goals, the educational goals, the 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, but they didn't have the numbers. We need to change that and focus on those clubs. Keep what we got going. But there's clubs that are doing it right. The club members are getting out of it what they want and growing and developing, but the club didn't reach the membership, so that's where we have to focus. So I believe if we make those 2 simple changes, focus our energy right now, now's the time to do it. We've got to get those clubs working and chartered by September 30th. I am convinced that strategy will turn it around for our district, and we will be President's Distinguished District. You with me?
Yeah.
All right.